Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're getting super uncomfortable. These are the 20 most disturbing enemies in Resident Evil games. Let's not waste time, I just want this to be over with. Here we go. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Giant Baby Resident Evil Village. We had to start the list with the worst enemy from Resident Evil Village. There is no moment in the series that matches the fear of the first time this thing crawled out of the darkness. The thought process sounded something like, there's something in there for sure, what is it? What is that? What the hell is that? Ew! The giant fetus baby thing is a manifestation of a hallucination. It doesn't have any attachment to the lore, it's just disgusting for disgusting's sake. And it works. Jack Baker, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Oh, she's so young.
Yeah, how's our other guest?
Sleeping, poor thing.
Oh, I say let him. He'll be okay here for a few days, at least while till we can get him into town.
Jack Baker feels like every movie serial killer from the 70s and 80s. He's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he's Jason Voorhees, he's Wolf Creek. I know Wolf Creek isn't from the 70s or 80s, but the point still stands. He's relentless in his pursuit and can easily kill you if you slip up. For most of your encounters with him, you can't even put a scratch on the guy. It really feels like he's just toying with you. He could charge at any moment, but instead, he stalks you slowly, deliberately. Throw in a taunting southern accent and a backstory that explains he's just a normal, nice guy who lost control of his faculties, and you have a disturbing enemy.
You and I. Oh yeah, I'm gonna take you for a ride. No!
Hunter's Resident Evil series. The Hunters are easily some of the most iconic nope enemies in the entire Resident Evil series. Every time they show up, most players will stop, turn, and run. And that's fine. They're fast, they hit like a truck, they're damage sponges, and worst of all, they can one-shot you. Every encounter with them is a stress test, and there's a reason they are recurring across the series. Cerberus Zombie Dogs Resident Evil series. Zombie dogs are as disturbing as it gets and are not only recurring in Resident Evil, but most zombie media. It's the juxtaposition of a man's best friend being changed to a man's worst enemy that hits extra hard. In RE1, you hear a distant howl, a chilling warning, and then suddenly they come crashing through a window ready to ruin your day. These flesh-ripping beasts demand quick reflexes and sharp aim, and if you hesitate, you're done for. While Cerberus has appeared throughout the franchise, it was the original game that gave birth to one of the most infamous jump scares of all time. William Burken, Resident Evil 2.
My precious G-Virus. No one will ever take you away from me.
William Burken embodies disturbing backstory more than any other enemy or boss in the second entry of Resident Evil. His story is especially tragic, starting out as a brilliant, well-meaning scientist, only to be twisted and transformed by the sinister ambitions of Umbrella. What begins as a horrifying mutation quickly spirals out of control, with Burken becoming more grotesque and unstable with each encounter. In the original or the remake, he's a disturbing little nerd. Queen Leech, Resident Evil 0.
Welcome, young one. So glad you have joined the party.
Resident Evil 0 has an eerie fixation on leeches, and it works surprisingly well in the game's favor. These parasitic creatures are central to the game's plot, and at the heart of it all is the Queen Leech, the game's final boss. Most disturbingly, it sees itself as a kind of messiah, judging humanity as corrupt. The last thing I want is a giant leech hellbent on giving me the business. El Gigante, Resident Evil 4.
Jesus Christ!
Resident Evil 4 was a major shift for the series, being the franchise's first real departure from Raccoon City. Among the many dangers Leon faces, one of the most shocking is the towering El Gigante. It's a brutal encounter that forces Leon to rely on quick thinking and strategy to survive. This is the kind of creature that could level a city if unleashed in the wrong place. The ability to create and house this monster is upsetting, and gives a major nod to future monsters in the series. Executioners Resident Evil 5.
What? Now to Zuia.
Typically armed with massive axes or chainsaws, the executioners can kill with a single gruesome blow. And just so you know, that's not chill. While they're not especially fast, they're often surrounded by swarms of lesser enemies, which makes it easy to lose track of them until it's too late and one is looming over you, scaring the absolute living daylights out of you. What makes executioners so disturbing isn't just their gameplay mechanics or attack power, it's their design. They are super yucky. Caterpillar Head, Resident Evil 4. The head-sprouting Las Plagas falls into three main categories, but the caterpillar variant is as gross as it gets. Anything that could just bite your head off whole is obviously going to be the absolute worst. It was already stressful enough trying to figure out which enemies to prioritize, and they've got one-shot head chewers coming for you. They keep you on edge through the whole game after they appear, because you don't know if one is getting close to you when you're in the midst of a horde shootout. The Leech Man, Resident Evil 0. The Leech Men soak up an absurd amount of damage, barely reacting to your attacks, and to make matters worse, even if you manage to kill one, it can still get the last laugh by killing you after it dies, as it drops a bunch of leeches. It's just not fair. The only saving grace is that they can be avoided, but that doesn't change the fact that their appearance is disturbing to look at. It's way too easy to accidentally trip into one of these guys, and that makes them one of the worst enemy types in RE0. Licker, Resident Evil 2. Put your goddamn tongue away. The thing about the Lickers from Resident Evil 2 is that even if all they did was look horrifying, they'd still end up on this list. But the real problem is their mechanics. These things can drop in from ceilings, changing the pH balance of the room instantly. This fellow ramped up the scare factors from the first game by introducing enemies that need to be managed vertically, which, by the way, is my least favorite type of enemy. Dr. Salvador, Resident Evil 4. Hey, I didn't know this until I started researching this list, but Chainsaw Man actually has a name, and it's Dr. Salvador. One hit is all it takes to bring Leon's mission to a gruesome end, complete with a graphic decapitation that's seared into players' memories. Watching your beloved character die gruesomely with specific animations is oddly disturbing. It works in The Last of Us, and it works here. The moment you hear the rev of that chainsaw in the distance, your heart rate spikes because you know one wrong move means instant death. Turning and seeing him moving towards you is as bad as RE4 gets. Noseratu, Resident Evil Code, Veronica. Can we get the Resident Evil Code Veronica remake we've been begging for already? Come on, Capcom. The villains, Alexander and Alexia Ashford, are among the most twisted in Resident Evil history, and the creature Nosferatu is the grotesque result of their cruel genetic experiments on their own father. We can learn very quickly that in Resident Evil, some of the most disturbing enemies come from humans being experimented on and left to rot. Held in isolation due to his unstable nature, Nosferatu is a living embodiment of suffering, and that's a bit too much for us. Regenerator, Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, it's very possible that there's no more chilling enemy than the Regenerators. These grotesque creatures are covered in brutal spike-like quills, but their real danger lies in their ability to regenerate, making them real tough to eliminate. They are the horrifying result of multiple parasites being implanted into a single host as part of an experiment to study unpredicted mutations. That is pretty dark, and you guessed it, pretty disturbing. Lipotitsa, Resident Evil 6. The Lipotitsa in Resident Evil 6 are deeply upsetting due to their grotesque appearance and horrifying abilities. Their bloated, deformed bodies spew a toxic gas that transforms nearby civilians into zombies, turning mass infection into a visual nightmare. The way they shuffle forward, leaking poison, fills players with a dread that other enemies can't. It's not just their look, it's the implication. They're walking bioweapons capable of wiping out entire populations in minutes. Get out of here.
Everyone, run!
Crimson Head's Resident Evil. The first Resident Evil remake did the perfect job of staying true to its original and also adding enough changes to keep us on our toes. One major surprise was the new mechanic for dealing with downed zombies. If you didn't burn their bodies after killing them, they'd come back as Crimson Heads. And Crimson Heads were the worst. Faster, more aggressive, they were disturbing times 10. The moment they sprinted toward you screaming like banshees, comfort turned to panic, and you realize that even if you're a veteran of RE1, you're gonna have to stay alert in this remake. Nemesis, Resident Evil 3.
I don't have time to explain. You gotta get out of there right now!
All right, let me grab my...
For this entry, we're focusing on Nemesis from the remake, because even though in the original he's relentless, unkillable, and has a knack for appearing at the worst possible moments, the Resident Evil 3 remake took his terror to the next level. The remake works towards showcasing his horrifying mutations and the sheer firepower required to bring him down. These elements didn't just make encounters more intense, they solidified Nemesis as one of the most terrifying and unforgettable monsters in the entire Resident Evil universe. It also helped us to not miss Mr. X and his mechanics. Lurker, Resident Evil 0. While creatures like hunters and lickers are recurring nightmares, Resident Evil 0 adds the lurkers to the mix, grotesque, mutated, frog-like beasts. And I know that sounds cute, but it's not. Though their appearance are rare and unpredictable, they leave a lasting impression. Lurkers are capable of swallowing players whole, resulting in instant death, a fate more disturbing than being torn apart. If you got scared of being swallowed by the giant baby in RE Village, I imagine this guy wasn't your favorite either way back in 2002. Mr. X, Resident Evil 2. Mr. X is more iconic than any other villain in the Resident Evil universe, and in the RE2 remake, he is as disturbing as it gets. Mr. X is basically the Terminator in a fedora, relentless, nearly indestructible, and completely unkillable for most of the game. When he shows up, you don't fight, you run, and his relentless pursuit of you throughout the police station is deeply unsettling. He wants to get you, and if that means smashing through walls like the Kool-Aid Man, so be it. Marguerite Baker, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. We had Jack earlier on in this list, and to finish us off, we have his beautifully disturbing wife. From the start, she looks like something straight out of Evil Dead, and then she mutates into a grotesque nightmare worthy of a Cronenberg film. On top of that, she controls and weaponizes swarms of insects, turning every encounter into a skin-crawling, panic-inducing experience. She crawls around, her minions crawl around, we get surrounded by bees and spiders and cockroaches, and it's just so bad. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.